An explosion erupts from the forest, and a young man stands there attacking a monster and throwing spell-like objects at it to repel its attacks. He jumps onto tree branches, and a spherical object resembling slime spews fire at the monster, killing it and leaving behind a crystal. In the city of Vistan, in the Adventurers Guild building, some adventurers are sitting and laughing loudly, directing their conversation to one of them. It's impossible for slime to breathe fire. That's ridiculous. He must have been hallucinating or not getting enough rest and sleep. Their conversation is interrupted by the young man who was in the forest carrying the slime and heading towards one of the workers there. The worker thought he had failed the task he was given, but he replied that he had not failed, but had completed it. The slime jumped off his shoulder and many white flowers came out of its mouth. She was amazed at the number she saw, as it was impossible, and she even suspected that it was not real, so she went to tell the manager about this large quantity. Everyone began to marvel at the quantity of flowers he had brought and guessed that the young man's appearance indicated that he was a tamer. The manager came and was also amazed by the quantity, realizing that he was no ordinary tamer, as these flowers would last for 2 years. He asked to buy them, even though they did not have many orders for doses. When he tried to tell him about the monster he fought in the forest, someone opened the door with a worried look on his face and told them that smoke signals were rising from the forest and that reports indicated that 10,000 monsters were coming from the forest. The slimes guessed that they were heading to the place where Yuji was, the city of Vistan. The manager informed the adventurers that 10,000 monsters were coming from the forest and that they had to leave the city immediately, but some of them shouted angrily about the local residents of this city and that evacuating them would be difficult, while others rushed in saying that they had to fight these monsters and protect the city. But Yuji, the young friend of the slime, raised his hand and said he had an idea. He went to them and took a large bone out of the slime's mouth and told them it was a dragon bone. He pointed to the bone and told them that even a tamer could do amazing things, but he could only use it once to create a dragon's flame, at which point they could exterminate the monsters together. But everyone was surprised by his words, as no one had ever heard of recreating dragon flames before. One of them pointed out that he was no ordinary tamer, but what he was saying was impossible. The man who had seen the slime breathe fire before approached him and told them that he trusted him. He turned to the director and realized that there was no other solution but this. And everyone began to learn about Yuji's plan. The manager and his staff distributed doses of the Doraya flowers that Yuji had collected earlier. The manager did not think they would be useful at the time, but the adventurers began to divide their numbers and rush to the front so that the monsters would arrive there as soon as possible. Everyone brought their weapons and headed towards the gatekeeper to block the monsters. Yuji contacted Proud Wolf, trying to find out how things were going with him in collecting the rest of the slimes, but the wolf was tired of what he was doing, so he strengthened Yuji's power and went to see what would happen next in the city. Behind the fortifications, the adventurers took the bombs and threw them at the monsters, and the arrow bearers shot at the bombs, causing them to explode and drop many crystal-like objects. But this was only the beginning of the battle, so they all drew their weapons and went to face the monsters. At the same time, Yuji began searching for a spell to protect the city as quickly as possible, but he received a call from Dryad telling him that there was a suspicious person wandering in the forest, a man carrying a magic stone. Yuji knew that there was a reason for the attack of so many monsters. He suspected that this man was the cause of all this and placed the magic stone on the ground. He asked if they could approach him, but warned them not to touch the stone or they would die if they did. He told her to put a barrier around the magic stone and then use a spell to dispel the curse, and the matter would be resolved. The slimes immediately set off. Before the slime fell on the suspicious man's head, Yuji transferred the spell through the magic network, and he was immediately restrained. The barrier was transferred to the stone, the curse was dispelled, and it was successfully lifted. When the slime ordered the man to be brought to him, there was something strange about him. He had a drug in his mouth, which he broke as soon as they caught him, and he shouted, "Bring salvation to this world," and died immediately after that. Proud Wolf was running towards him, but when he looked at the adventurers, he saw that they were struggling in their channel, so he asked him to help them and asked some of the slimes to help them. The slimes jumped in front of the adventurers, and Yuji transferred the spell to them, so they shot flames from their mouths at the monsters, and the adventurers were excited and rushed to help them. Yuji noticed that there were so many monsters that he couldn't protect them all and that the fire would reach them. After thinking about it, he decided to transfer the spell to the barrier and then release it outside, but there was someone watching all this the whole time, Layla, the assistant manager. He told her to tell the manager that the warriors had to return to the city. He also ordered the slimes to return to the city and surround it completely. As for Dryad and her companions, they had to hide underground. When he was sure that the slimes were spread out in their places, he was about to cast a spell when he suddenly received a call that they had a problem. There was a warrior who was still being attacked by a monster, and Gale had joined him. When the director shouted that they had to go, they signaled him to leave them. But suddenly, Proud Wolf jumped out from behind them and killed the monster, and they all entered the city so that Yuji could cast the spell. Yuji transferred the barrier spell to all the slimes, creating a barrier that covered the entire city. Everyone was stunned to see it, and then he cast a spell that burned everything, destroying all the monsters. The adventurers and the townspeople couldn't believe that this was the power of a single tamer and how a single dragon could unleash such a huge amount of fire. Everyone kept wondering if Yuji was doing all this alone, so the managers replied that whoever used this spell would inevitably be killed, so Layla went to him. Something appeared stepping out of the fog. The slimes noticed it and told Yuji that there were more living monsters, but Yuji was about to lose consciousness. His mana points had become negative, so he compensated with life points. However, he got up and told the slimes to do it again, but Layla tried to stop him. He interrupted her, saying that he would be fine, and the slimes responded immediately and created the barrier and fire again, but this time he lost consciousness completely. Yuji woke up in his bed with the slimes happily gathered around him. Layla came in with food for him. Somewhere in the forest, Director Aegis found the body of the suspicious man who had committed suicide. Some soldiers motioned for him to come see something, and he was surprised when he saw it. He told them they had to go back. When Yuji ate the food, Layla thanked him for saving their city and told him that Gale and the others had held a celebration for saving the city, which made him happy, but she was surprised that he had saved a city he had no connection to. Then Yuji remembered part of his previous life and smiled. Layla left, and when she returned, she did not find him in the room. He had left. In the cool night breeze, Yuji walks with Proud Wolf and Slime tells him that they are starving and happy to have used Yuji's spells several times today and killed the suspicious man, but his identity is still unknown to them. Layla went to tell the director that Yuji had left, but she noticed something on his desk. He told her that it was with the dead man in the forest. They found the curse stone scattered next to him, but they recognized the emblem on it, which may belong to a certain sect, and reported it to the center. However, Yuji had left Slime in his office to convey and find out what was happening, and he told him the whole story. One of the slimes ran to the edge of the road to tell him that he had found it. He found a city and headed there with Yuji and the rest. Party 8T. In a tent lit by candles, a number of men gather, and one of them says that their goal is to bring the unknown adventurers before the moon changes color. While Yuji and the rest are in the city talking about how hungry they are, they haven't stopped to eat, so Proud Wolf is surprised that the slimes love meat so much. Without realizing it, he finds that they have become the center of attention, so he decides to stop to eat and brings meat for everyone to eat. While they were eating, they heard a bell from the church ring several times, and the vendor told them that the church was about to announce good news, as a priest had come from the center. Yuji remembered what the director and Layla had said. Yuji tried to register himself as an adventurer in this city, but it seemed difficult from the looks of the worker there. However, as soon as she learned that he could detect enemies, she registered him immediately, as such a skill would reduce the number of deaths in the team. She tells him to start immediately if he is available. When looking at the applications, someone asks him if he is the new person and introduces himself as Rhodes, who is skilled in using daggers. The other is Tina, who is skilled in archery, and the third is Lisa, who is skilled in using spears. He introduces himself to them and tells them that this is his first time joining a team. However, when Rhodes learns that he is a tamer and not skilled in combat, he sees that he is only a burden and will not accept him. On the contrary, the two girls accept him and tell him that they need someone to reveal the location of the enemies, so they do not need Rhodes this time. Also, the members of his former team fled and hinted to him that his style is sometimes rude. They give him the choice of accepting him or letting Yuji participate in this mission. Later, the four walk in the forest, and it appears that Rhodes has accepted their offer. Their mission is to locate the Earth Dragon, but they do not have to fight it. Rhodes will take the lead, Tina will take the middle, and Lisa will take the end. Yuji's role is to discover the dragon's location, and he sees no need to fight. Yuji contacts Proud Wolf and asks him about the situation there. Proud Wolf reassures him that everything is fine, but the slimes want to fight. Yuji prevents them from doing anything, and a few steps away, monsters appear in front of them. Yuji informs his team that there are monsters 2 kilometers ahead of them. At first, the team does not believe him because the exploration range is too far away from them, but Rhodes rushes to confirm whether what he said is true or not, and indeed finds the monsters, but the two girls notice one of the monsters hiding, and Yuji finds it above them. The monster tried to attack them, but Rhodes quickly knocked it down and took care of eliminating them all by himself. He expressed his admiration for Yuji for knowing where the monsters were. In the evening, the team gathered around the warm campfire, and the two girls tried to find out how Yuji learned his skill. Did he learn it from someone, or what happened? But he tells them that he learned it somehow and does not mention how. Rhodes interrupts their conversation, saying that they should rest now and take turns on guard duty. From the distribution of roles, it seems that Rhodes is a generous man after all. Yuji suddenly finds himself in a strange place in front of a screen that shows he is a monster tamer. When he touches something next to him, it appears to be a monster he has tamed, but it feels like slime. After taming the slime, it continues to run, and Yuji follows it to a house at the end of the road. Upon entering, he finds it filled with books everywhere. When he looks at a book, he finds that he has learned a fire spell just by reading it for the first time, and his mana and life points have also increased. Slimes from all over gather around him, wanting to be tamed as well, and as soon as that is done, they go to read all the books in the place, and Yuji gains all the information they have obtained and rises to the rank of Sage. Suddenly, the slime speaks after the promotion. Yuji wakes up from his dream to the sound of slime calling him and realizes that a week has passed and informs him that Rhodes has escaped while he was guarding him, and the two girls are also missing. Rhodes follows some of the slimes and the Proud Wolf, while the other follows Lisa and Tina. It becomes clear that Lisa and Tina are watching him, as it is not normal for him to be so protective of others. Rhodes watches the movement around him, and when he sees someone moving behind the trees, he aims his dagger at him and almost hits the slime, but Yuji uses a spell to hide them. He takes his dagger and continues running, dodging all the traps, with the two girls following him until he reaches a tent. It is the tent where the old man who gathers adventurers is. He asks him about his harvest, and he replies that he has two girls and a boy. As for the boy, he is not good at fighting, and it is easy to get rid of him by leaving him to the monsters. As for the two girls, if his guess is correct, they are close by and will soon fall into the traps. As usual, he will say that his team members have fled because the request was not completed. The old man smiles and looks at the moon, which has become dark, and continues his speech, saying that the disaster occurs on the night of the blue moon, according to the blue moon of salvation. The two girls do not believe what is happening and will not tell each other, but they rush off and fall into one of the traps, so Rhodes rushes to catch them. The two girls are worried that Rhodes will catch them, but when he goes outside, he finds a strange monster in the dark. The old man takes a look and tells them that he has never seen anything like it before, so they must go back inside. This monster is the slime gathered on the back of the Proud Wolf. Yuji thanks him for his help and chooses a spell to cast on the old man's tent. He chooses the Frost spell, which freezes everyone in the tent. The old man brings him the frozen slime from the tent, and the two girls are surprised to find that he is a famous and wanted bandit, but Yuji pays no attention to him, so they decide to return to the city, now that the main character had disappeared. But Yuji offered them his slime to help them, and they were impressed by his ability to do all this. However, Yuji remembered how others had relied on him in the past, and he didn't like that, so he threw one of the slimes up to find them a new place to camp. When the slime finds a place, everyone goes there, and Yuji orders the slime to bring torches, tents, and the remaining supplies. The two girls remain in awe of what is happening around them. When they go to sleep, Yuji begins to analyze the old man's words and whether his talk about the Blue Moon disaster has anything to do with the city of Vista. Everyone began searching for any trace of the Earth Dragon, but they found nothing yet. A strong wind came, which surprised Yuji, and she told him that it was probably coming from Delight Gorge. He received a call from Slime saying that he could see the valley now. He tells him that it is also known as the Valley of Winds, and some believe that the winds coming from it are the dragon's breath. So the slimes continue to search everywhere for the Earth Dragon, but they have not found it yet. However, the two girls trust them after they are convinced that they are the ones who defeated the bandits. Yuji is surprised by their appreciation of his powers with the slimes, as this is similar to what happened to him before in the adventurer's test in the city of Vista. He was able to pass it and surprise the others, but he did not realize that his powers were formidable to them. Yuji then decided to use weak spells, and when he chose one, it defeated the monster. He continued to change them over and over again, but even the weak spells seemed to be useful. The two girls were curious because they had not encountered any monsters yet, and they were supposed to meet some on the way. He told them that his slimes took care of it and destroyed them. But suddenly the color of the sky changed, and the slimes felt a strange feeling of fear. When one of them looked at the sky, he thought that the fear was caused by this phenomenon, and lightning and thunder began to appear. The slimes told Yuji that they were going to check it out. In the city, the priest went to the branch manager, Rayard, and asked him if he knew what the blue moon actually symbolized. But he didn't know anything about it, so he replied that disaster strikes when the moon is blue, according to the prophecy, and showed him a book of ancient legends. At that moment, a meteor fell from the sky into the forest, causing a huge explosion, and a giant winged dragon appeared from it. He tells Yuji about the dragon's appearance, and the two girls ask him if it is the Earth Dragon, but this dragon is many times its size, so they tell him that they must return because this is considered a disaster, and everyone takes the path of the ravine. Yuji is concerned about the presence of monsters in his gorge, but the two girls tell him that there have been no reports of monsters here for the past 10 decades, as most of them are uncomfortable with the strong winds there. However, he sends Proud Wolf to lead them in the search with some of the slimes. Indeed, they encounter some monsters, and Yuji transfers the spells to the slimes so that they can destroy them. But the strong winds blow them away, and the wolf tells them that they must hold on to him until the winds calm down. For a moment, Proud Wolf realized that the wind was coming from somewhere in the ravine and was actually increasing from there, but he continued on his way with the slimes to secure the ravine. Then Yuji and the two girls passed by all the monsters that the slimes had fought and were impressed by their strength. They were indeed powerful, but at the same time, proud wolf was running in fear of the bear chasing them. One of the slimes turned to him, and Yuji cast a fire spell on it, burning it instantly. Without the proud wolf and the slimes noticing, they had already left the ravine and destroyed all the monsters in it. When Yuji told them this, the ground suddenly shook and cracked, and an earth dragon emerged from it. Yuji realized that it had been hiding underground so that the wind would not affect it. The two girls ran to hide behind the rocks, but Yuji decided to stay and face it. He started by using some weak spells and kept casting them repeatedly, but they had no effect on it until the dragon took the form of a ball and kept running. But the slime followed it and kept throwing more stones at it until it changed course and returned to Yuji. As soon as it approached him, Yuji moved away from his spot, and a strong wind blew toward the dragon, becoming like a dust storm due to its constant movement on the ground. One of the slimes reflected light on it, so Yuji decided to use one of the powerful spells, the flame spell, which burned the dragon completely. The two girls couldn't believe what they were seeing. The dragon had been completely destroyed. One of them thought that Yuji had used flammable metals in this area to ignite it with the help of the slime, and he replied yes. Everyone returned to the Union building to inform them that the mission had been completed, but the worker did not believe them. The slime took out the dragon's skull, and she was still surprised. She also asked about Rhodes, and the slime took him out of its mouth. They handed Rhodes over to the bandits and completed the dragon mission, earning 14 million coins. Suddenly, the branch manager came up behind Rhodes and told him he wanted to talk to him. The branch manager met with Yuji, the priest, and some other people to decide what to do about the delight dragon that had appeared. They asked Yuji for a drawing of what it looked like, so he used a spell to visualize it in his mind on paper. The manager was amazed that it looked like the picture and asked the priest to show them the legend in his book. He began to tell them the legend. The dragon grew under a dark sky and continued to grow, and the last time it appeared, it destroyed an entire continent in 3 days. Everyone was terrified and thought that their end was coming in 3 days, but the manager wanted to know how to destroy it. Wherever there are legends, it means that there are people who live to tell them, and he found that the one who would destroy it was God's messenger. The director replied that there was no such thing in this day and age, but he guessed how the dragon was born. 30 years ago, the church had performed a ceremony to prevent such a disaster from occurring, and it was supposed to be performed again a week ago. But the priest told him that there was not enough evidence to do so, and everyone panicked again. The director quickly told them that this did not mean they had to wait for death, but that they would fight as soon as the sun rose and the sky darkened again. He told Yuji that the dragon had grown in size again. The two girls meet Yuji while he is eating with the slime. They have joined the group that will fight the dragon tomorrow, and from what they say, it seems that they are completely dependent on Yuji and his slime. When they leave, Yuji finds the priest looking at him intently and apologizing for being late in introducing himself. He is the priest sent by the central church, and his name is Steel. He wants to give Yuji something, so he brings him a box containing a dagger and tells him that it is the divine invitation that made him offer it to him. In a small room, Yuji lay down to rest in preparation for tomorrow's battle with the dragon, but the slime told him that the dragon had grown in size again, and Yuji knew that this battle would cost many lives. He remembered that everyone had been shocked by his extremely powerful spells in the adventurer's test, so he decided to try to save everyone. In the evening, Yuji, Proud Wolf, and the slime all headed toward the dragon. Upon their arrival, Yuji ordered them all to leave except for one who would attack the dragon with him. He decided to attack it with fire magic, but the slime informed him that this attack had no effect on it. The dragon roared and charged, preparing to strike back at Yuji. If it weren't for the protective spell, he and his companions would have been hit, but the dragon grew larger than before, and Yuji noticed that it was absorbing mana from the magical forest. Yuji decided to continue fighting, but this time, he would fight up close using the dagger the priest had given him. He ran in stealth to get close to it, and the dragon continued to attack them. Yuji grabbed one of the slimes and threw it at him, transferring the protection spell to it and using it to get under him. Yuji continued to jump from under him until he reached the top, and when the dragon tried to shoot at him, Yuji hit him with a fire spell and jumped to stab him in the eye with the dagger, focusing the fire spell on the dagger to finish him off. When he fell from the blow, the dragon responded by hitting him with his tail, knocking him away. Yuji realized that if he didn't knock it down, it would kill him instantly as his mana points had become negative. He was no longer able to use the protective wall and had to knock it to the ground, so he thought that freezing it would end this. But suddenly, the divine attack spell appeared to him, so he used it immediately on it. Indeed, the divine attack struck the dragon, knocking him to the ground. Yuji rushed over and used the dagger with the fire spell, severing his neck from the rest of his body and completely destroying him. While lying in bed after his return, the director knocks on his door and tells him that the city sky is back to normal and that the dragon has been defeated by someone.
Really, nigga?
He thought it was the priest who said this, but he did not reveal the name of the person who defeated the dragon, saying only that it was a divine message. In the end, the director informs him that the guild supports him whenever he needs it and that it is okay to ask for help. Yuji is surprised that he said this to him. Lisa and Tina come to tell Yuji in the dining hall that the campaign they told him about has been canceled because the dragon has already been defeated. When they ask him what he will do next, he says he will go to another city and ask them to suggest a place where strange things don't happen. They recommend the city to him, and he leaves, but he leaves Slime hidden beside them. He received an urgent call from Dryad and went to her immediately. She told him that mushrooms had grown in the place where he had fought the dragon, which would help her make ancient potions like the sage and restore mana, as this potion would restore the mana he had lost 10 minutes before using it. The slime gathered the mushrooms, and in return, Dryad would make the potions for him, but when she finished, she found that their color had changed from what it was supposed to be, as they needed pure water. Yuji helped her distill the water to obtain pure water. She was amazed by what he could do, and remembered their first encounter when she was completely unconscious and Yuji transferred mana to her. She told him that someone had left behind a stone that was draining her power, so he immediately dispelled the curse on him and destroyed the monsters coming from it. As a token of gratitude, she gave him the flowers used in making potions. Yuji still couldn't understand why the potion resembled magic stones, so she replied that it was probably because it was made from dragon pools, a rare power produced in places where dragons die, whose powerful magic causes mushrooms to grow, which are then used to make magic stones. I explained to him that the dragon pool is neither good nor evil, it depends on how it is used. However, if used incorrectly, it could destroy the forest. The slime finished distilling the water, added it to the potion, and its color turned blue again. The Dryad returned to the forest after giving Yuji the potion she had promised him. On his way to the next town, Ricardo, the fog was so thick that he could barely see, and after a few steps, he smelled the scent of humans and went to check it out. Yuji followed him and found himself passing through a village where all the people smiled at him, and one of them invited him to have dinner with them at least. When he asked him the name of the village, he replied that it was Christ Village. After leaving, he still felt that there was something about this village. Meanwhile, the man who hosted him was talking to someone about Yuji, saying that he was just a traveler and there was no need to worry about him, as their preparations were ready to harvest the dragon's blessing tomorrow from Delight Pond to purify this world. The slime continued to imagine the type of food, the way of eating, and the amenities in the city of Ricardo, but when they arrived, they were surprised to find it completely covered in snow. He almost froze from the intense cold, so he cast a spell on himself to warm him up and enable him to move. When he arrived at the city gate, he asked the guard what had happened to this place, and the guard told him that it had been snowing for 10 days and that some people had died because of it, but Yuji replied that he had come for the delicious food. The guard advised him to go to the Tiger Flame restaurant, so Yuji wanders around the city looking for it and notices that the weather in this city has never been this cold before because of the atmosphere. He arrived at the restaurant, but the waitress told him that they were closed for the day. He asked when they would open tomorrow, and she replied that they had used up all their firewood for the stove and had nothing left to cook with. However, Yuji was determined to eat at this place, so he went to cut down trees and gather firewood, which he brought to the chef. The chef was amazed at the amount he had gathered and prepared to make his best dishes. He prepared a slice of Angus beef with reishi mushrooms, which looked very appetizing, and when Yuji tasted the first bite, he realized that it was the most delicious thing he had tasted in this world since he came to it, and he finished it all. The chef wanted to make him soup, but it took time, so he prepared the steak for him. When Yuji wanted to return the next day, the worker told him that they could not use firewood for cooking because the city was in dire need of it. He promised her he would come back and went immediately to the Adventurers Guild, where he found that all the requests were for firewood. He took one of them, and the worker there told him that collecting firewood required bringing it and cutting it into specific shapes, and she described a place that would give him more information about the shape of the firewood. He went to the tree cutting instructor, who told him that the city was not used to this cold weather and needed 5 tons of wood per day, but they did not have enough manpower, so the neighboring villages had also sent workers to them. When he asked him if the village of Almazy had sent anyone, he replied that the place had been abandoned for some time. Yuji began cutting down trees, and when asked if he had any experience, he said that it was his first day. Everyone was impressed by the number of trees he cut down and divided, and in the end, the slime absorbed the moisture from them, so everyone had many questions, but with this amount, they would not mind seeing anything. After cutting down many trees, the trainer brought them to the warehouse, and when the worker thanked him, he told her that the credit went to the young man who had joined him that day, as he had cut enough for 3 days and used his own slime to transport them here. She was a little surprised by what she heard, and said that she had heard in one of the churches about a legend that said there was a monster that used slime to transport things. Yuji thought that the priest must know something, so he would ask him when he saw him next time. The firewood was stored, and Yuji and Slime finished their work. When he went to the restaurant, the chef served him soup as a token of gratitude for what he had done to help the town. Slime and Yuji were so impressed with the food that they asked for another serving, but the chef told them that this was not his best dish. The monsters had recently destroyed the fields where the Risha herb grew, as this herb only grows in this area, and they ate all the good herbs. Yuji, Proud Wolf, and Slime were filled with enthusiasm and went to the field immediately. They split into 2 teams, one guarding the field and the other searching for monsters called greedy pigs. Unfortunately, there was no sign of them yet. After a short search, Slime found one of the pigs, so Yuji cast a spell on them to destroy it, and they continued to destroy them one by one until they had destroyed 50 of them. In the end, some of them told him that they had found a strange ball, so he called Dryad to see if she knew anything about it, but but she had never seen anything like it before. When Yuji touched it, it absorbed his magic, so he assumed it was a dragon's blessing. Yuji expected that it would not be surprising if it turned into cursed magic at some point, but after thinking for a moment, Dryad realized that the ball might be the reason for what happened to this place, as it absorbed all the magic here. Dryad explained that magic was related to the temperature of a place. If the place was cold, it meant there was little magic there, and if there was a lot of magic, the place was hot, like a volcano. This ball was man-made and not natural, so Yuji decided to dispel the curse on it. After dispelling the magic from it, he ordered the slimes to search for more of them in the vicinity. The slimes found 108 balls in the surrounding area, distributed in a circular pattern, but Yuji thought there was something in the middle of these balls. When he reached the center, he felt that there was something strange about this forest, so he decided to destroy it and asked Dryad if she minded, but she agreed with him. When he burned it, he found an entrance somewhere and felt very excited to see what was inside. The slimes were surprised by his enthusiasm, so he replied that the reason he was helping the people of this village was because their food was delicious. After destroying the forest, he found a strange door, opened it, and went down with some of the slimes to check out the place. The slimes decided to split up to explore it further, but Yuji was surprised to find giant machines in many rooms connected to stones. He guessed that these machines were used to make stones, but he wondered how this world could have such advanced machines like this. He hears running footsteps and hides. Two men appear to check on the stones, and when they look at them, they find that they are not in good condition, so they run off to tell Javier, which makes Yuji wonder if this is who makes them. Yuji leads the exploration to the slimes, casts a cloaking spell on them, and climbs to the roof to continue on his way. At the same time, the slimes find the two men who appeared a moment ago and follow them door after door until they reach a staircase. When they climb it, they arrive at a place they already know, and Yuji also reaches the end of his path, as both paths lead to the village of Christ. After searching, the slimes finally find the two men in a house talking to a man named Javier, the same man who had welcomed Yuji before. They tell him that the explosion affected the stones and destroyed them, but what Yuji realized was that everyone in the village belonged to the Blue Moon of Salvation group and were using the village as a hideout. Javier holds a meeting with his sect and tells them that the source of energy that created the stones has been destroyed and that they must collect the raw materials from the forest. If they cannot obtain 28, they should collect as many as possible, and if anyone encounters them, they should kill them, as they no longer need this village. Yuji began to implement his plan by distributing the slimes a kilometer away from the village to fortify it. The rest of them had to find out if there were any inhabitants in the village of Christ other than the sect, but they found no one else. After finishing their exploration and search of the village, the slimes went to a room that was different from the rest and found many papers and books in it. Yuji ordered them to collect them all, and after they finished, they noticed that there was still a closed door that was difficult for them to open. The lighting in this room was different from the rest, with the lamps gathered only around the door, so Yuji had each slime stand by a lamp and cast a wind spell, which turned off the lights and opened the door. They found many treasures inside, but they heard footsteps approaching, so they had to hurry out. When a girl entered the room, she found no documents, books, or even treasure. The slime had swallowed them all, and she immediately went to tell Javier. Now everyone realized that this was all someone's plan. When they tried to contact their informants, no one answered, and Javier knew that whoever had planned all this was extremely powerful. But if he was really that powerful, why hadn't he finished them off yet? All Javier could think was that this person now knew about the plan. The purifying flame was prepared to burn everything and turn it to ashes as soon as it touched it. They had prepared it to kill the people of this village, and now all they had to do was respond to everything this person had done to weaken them. There is no one else in this village except them and the intruder. They all raised their weapons and pointed them at their necks. In one voice, they repeated that they must bring salvation to this world and immediately stabbed themselves and died. The earth began to shake around everyone, and Yuji gathered the slimes to transport them to him without harm. He erected 3 barriers around the village of Christ, and as soon as he finished, the earth cracked and a purifying flame emerged from it, destroying one barrier after another until Yuji reached the negative. He kept looking for another barrier to contain the flames, but to no avail. He realized that he had to make one himself, so he gathered a number of barriers together and created a barrier array to contain the flames, but they continued for a while longer and destroyed the entire village before finally dying out. After the fire was over, Yuji returned to the village and found its people gathered together, worried about what had happened to him. He had not returned after going to kill the pigs, and they thought that something bad had happened to him because of the explosions. They also believed that meteorites had struck the forest and caused the ice to melt. The next day, all the ice melted, and the weather became warmer. The villagers invited Yuji to attend a ceremony they held to celebrate the end of the cold spell. Everyone was happy that Yuji, the guest of honor, had come to the party. Without him, the village would not have survived because of the firewood he had collected. Yuji thought this was a reason to celebrate and enjoy the soup, so much so that he lost consciousness from its deliciousness. When he woke up, he remembered that he had examined the records and documents he had brought from the sect, but but when he opened each one, the words disappeared except for one that resembled an assassination record. Yuji looked at it closely, and somewhere in the distance, two people appeared who were assassinating everyone in the palace, and in their hands was the same list, which also included Yuji's name. At the top of a hill, the two people stood watching Yuji for a while until they found him and promised to teach him a lesson if he resisted them. After Yuji learned that his name was on the list of people to be assassinated, he decided to leave the city as he should not stay in the same place for too long. The worker recommended the city of Bogina, which is one of the most famous cities for armor manufacturing and the best place for trainers like him. If he wants to find a specific workshop, he should go to Gagel's blacksmith workshop as he is a skilled person despite his rude manner. Lying in the forest and sleeping, that was Yuji's situation when the assassins kept watching him. One of them wanted to kill him immediately, but the other decided to watch him for another day to see if he was worth killing or not, as he was ultimately on their assassination list and not their primary list of targets. During all this talk, Yuji was listening to them through the invisible slime and decided that they had to remove him from the list of candidates. He arrived in the city of Bogina and continued searching until he reached a blacksmith's workshop, but as soon as he saw something he liked, he was shocked by the price and was kicked out of the place. The assassins followed him, and he bumped into a man while walking and apologized to him, looking very clumsy in his behavior towards them. When he bought food, he didn't have enough money for that either, which surprised her. Was he really that poor? At the end of the day, he went to a bar, and the assassins followed him there. But even though the man was convinced that he was a clumsy fool who was of no use, the woman had a different opinion and decided that they should continue to watch him. The next day, Yuji went to take an order from the guild, and it seemed that he was the easiest of them. As soon as he reached his destination, he informed Slime and Proud Wolf that they would fight today without magic, so the tamer made the monsters he had tamed fight. Proud Wolf was chosen to fight, but fear overwhelmed him, and when he attacked one of the monsters, he knocked it down completely, reminding him that he was indeed Proud Wolf. Yuji remembered their first encounter when Proud Wolf tried to attack him, but when he used the magic net to restrain him, Proud Wolf apologized and asked him to forgive him and let him go. But Yuji had no intention of killing him and tamed him. After seeing this, Yuji wondered if the Proud Wolf was really strong or what, and decided not to tell him in the end. The wolf turned to him and said that he would take care of these monsters immediately. With successive blows, the wolf defeated them and knocked them to the ground, but this was still not enough for the assassins, so Yuji strengthened the monsters' powers, and Proud Wolf attacked them again. They continued like this repeatedly until Yuji strengthened them with tremendous energy, but it became difficult for the wolf to defeat them as he was exhausted from the previous attacks. When Yuji decided to strengthen his powers as well, the wolf stopped him, saying that it was a battle between them and the monsters and that he should not interfere. Indeed, he knocked them all to the ground. As they were finishing off the monsters, one of them suddenly woke up behind Yuji and attacked him, but Yuji automatically summoned a sword and killed him instantly. However, this seemed illogical to the assassins, as he had never owned a sword before, and could he also summon weapons? All these weapons remained in their minds, but luckily for him, in the end, they decided not to kill him. However, when the invisible slime ordered them to retreat, they backed down because they were already deciding who would be next in the assassination series. Yuji continued to watch them and listen to their conversation with their boss. The next target was the priest Steel, and he informed them of who was after them. The village of Christ had been completely destroyed, and they had performed the purifying flame, which meant that someone was secretly orchestrating all of this. As soon as Yuji learned this, he transferred the freezing spell to the slimes and froze them immediately. He returned to the workshop to bring armor for the slimes, and when the worker tried to kick him out, the owner, Gagel, became angry and decided to make armor for the slimes, attributing them to him as he believed they were stronger than those who had visited him. There was a problem that Gagel faced in making armor for Yuji's partners, which was that the gem he had with him would be destroyed by the slimes and Proud Wolf's intense power as soon as he made armor with it. Yuji realized that they had to bring something stronger. Gagel pointed to a volcano with dragons, saying that if Yuji took its gem, he would make the best armor suitable for slimes. It is called the Lesser Fire Dragon and is rare among the other dragons there. Yuji was determined to find it. When asked if there were ordinary dragons, the answer was, of course, yes. He immediately went to the guild and took all the orders, which surprised the worker as no one had ever done this before. Yuji told her that he would use magic against her, but she told him that her gem made her resistant to magic and that normal attacks would not work because of the hardness of her scales. Usually, people hunt them using water, but transporting a large amount of water to the foot of the mountain takes a lot of effort, and if someone uses water magic, they must have a huge supply of it, and there is no such thing. The magic of water was one of Yuji's special abilities, but he still had to cross the river first to reach the mountain. The worker continued, saying that the river contained a fish called a piranha, which was a man-eater, and if it caught him, it would drag him to the bottom and eat him. Yuji accepted the fish mission as well, and when he reached the mountain, he wondered if the slimes could approach it or not. He replied that they would go and ask first, and when he followed them, he found them gathered around a red slime, so he tamed it as well and replied that it was okay to approach. They all arrived at the river, but the slimes couldn't sense the piranhas and couldn't swim, so Yuji made a net that held them all, and one of them found a hole in the bottom, so he went to take a look, and another slime joined him, and after a few seconds, the two were screaming and running away from the fish that were chasing them. Bam! They got caught in the net, and Yuji tried to pull them out, but the net broke. The fish tried to approach Yuji, but he froze it immediately. The shock was that it had broken the ice again, so Yuji avoided its attack and cast a fire spell on it, and it fell immediately. Yuji continued walking towards the foot of the mountain, and the slimes were noisy, talking constantly to the other red slimes until Yuji noticed the presence of dragons and was surprised that the slimes had not warned him. The slimes were terrified of them, as these were the lesser fire dragons, but suddenly there was silence among the slimes as they feared these dragons. One of them replied that his mother had told him that these dragons were indeed dangerous, but Yuji approached them and used water magic to destroy them, and the slime's fear disappeared. This encouraged them to destroy the rest of the monsters, and Yuji taught them water magic, and they obtained many gems. He received a call from other slimes saying that they had found the blue dragon. When he reached it, he confirmed that this was indeed what he was looking for, as it looked stronger and tougher than the other dragons. The slimes gathered around the dragon, and Yuji ordered 10 of them to approach it and cast water magic on it. But this was not enough to freeze it. The dragon was indeed powerful and immediately broke through the shield. The 10 slimes gathered, and Yuji cast the freezing spell 10 times on the dragon. When it tried to melt the ice, it became a lot of water, which killed it, and its gem came out. Yuji took the gem, and the slimes were excited to destroy the rest of the dragons, so they worked the rest of the day until evening to destroy them. He returned to the guild and had completed the 22 requests and also obtained the piranha, but the worker informed him that it was swimming on the surface of the water. However, Yuji found the opposite to be true, as he found it at the bottom and lured it to catch it. The worker filled out a form to inform the authorities of the fish's unusual behavior in case of any emergency, and then Yuji went to Gagel's workshop and gave him the jewel. Gagel was impressed and, with the help of his dragon slayers, realized that they were indeed as powerful as he had thought. He told him that he would make a shield for the Proud Wolf immediately, so he gave him another blue gem to make for the slime, which increased their amazement. He replied that he still had many crystals, but they were for small fire dragons, not blue ones. The slime took them out and filled the table with them, and their quality was so high that the blacksmith began working immediately. The blacksmith finished making the shields in the morning, and they were the best he had ever made. He told Yuji to try them out, and the Proud Wolf found that his speed had increased greatly, as had the slimes. But before Yuji left, the blacksmith looked at him and said that he should try something else. The blacksmith was convinced that this was not all the magic Yuji used in battle, so Yuji tried it, but he told him that this was still not all he fought with, and when he tried to transfer a medium spell to the slime, it almost destroyed the gem. Everyone returned to the workshop, and the blacksmith asked Yuji if he was using spells stronger than this one. He replied yes, sighing that the jewels would not withstand it. Yuji then asked him if there was anything that could make stronger shields. He told him that there was only one solution: the fire dragons that lived inside the volcano. But the problem was that they only came out of it occasionally, and no one had ever approached them. A message came from the slime that Yuji had left at the mountain, saying that the dragons were behaving unusually, so he quickly sent Proud Wolf and the slime to check the situation and told them to let him know if they encountered anyone. Everyone ran quickly, and suddenly the earth shook and the volcano erupted. The wolf rushed to check if there were any people near him and found 2 people on the road. Yuji thought they were from that sect. Yuji made sure that everyone was okay after the volcano erupted, and Slime told him that the dragon was very strong and huge, so they should tell him if it did anything unusual. As for the 2 people, they were heading towards the volcano, and Yuji sent Saimi to follow them incognito to hear what they were saying. Their target was the dragon, and when one of them hesitated about the failure of the mission, the other replied that the people of Odari had told them that it would be a success. They continued on their way, carrying barrels on their backs, which aroused Yuji's curiosity, so he decided to attack them. They quickly dodged the attack, and he realized that they were not amateurs. They thought there was a wizard in the cave, but they found nothing, so Yuji decided to attack them from behind this time, but they dodged that too and immediately struck the slime with a dagger. Yuji expected them to lower their guard at that moment and attack them with another slime with a magic net that immediately bound them. The 2 were surprised by the slime gathering around them and assumed it was the person they had removed from the list, but they found no escape, so they broke the poison in their mouths and died immediately. Yuji confirmed that they were from the Blue Moon group. The slimes checked the barrels and felt an energy similar to that of the magic stones. They had only one solution: to seek the help of Dryad. Dryad checked the barrels and found that they contained cursed water. It would not be enough to destroy the cursed dragons, and it did not have the same power as the magic stones, but this curse was enough to make the dragons furious. The solution was to clean the water immediately, so Yuji dispelled the curse from it and the Dryad returned to the forest. The hotel owner came to warn Yuji about the rain, saying that the dragon had not awakened like this in 50 years. The dragon became enraged by the rain and burned the entire city to the ground. Indeed, anger appeared on the herd of young dragons, in addition to the fire dragon, which headed towards Yuji. Between the city roads and the dragons were 2 rivers, so Yuji decided to see their reaction. The first river evaporated as soon as the dragon approached it, but this amount of water was not enough to destroy it. Yuji decided to finish it off and rushed the slime and Proud Wolf towards it, transferring the wide-range frost spell to them, freezing the ground beneath the dragon's feet. The spell's effect was greater this time than ever before because of the shields. The slime continued to confront it with the same spell 10 times, but it only froze its head, which the dragon broke. He became enraged and breathed fire, but Yuji blocked it with a frost attack. It was dangerous to prolong this battle, so Yuji ordered Proud Wolf to head to the second river. These steps gave Yuji time to finish what he was planning. He built a barrier to prevent the water from reaching the dragon, and as soon as the dragon stood in the river, Yuji opened the barrier and the water rushed out and immediately flooded the dragon. Proud Wolf and Slime were impressed by Yuji's plan, but none of them knew when he had carried it out, so he told them that he had started it when the dragon crossed the first river, gathering the water, and then Proud Wolf went to take a look at the dragon. They found the dragon lying motionless in the river. As soon as they moved,
surprise, motherfucker,
it turned toward them and fired a fireball that would have destroyed them if not for the barrier Yuji had put up. The wolf quickly fled from in front of it. The dragon created a fireball larger than any it had ever created before, and Yuji knew that its goal was to destroy the city, so he found a curse to cast on it to stop it. He transferred the Eternal Frost curse spell to the slime, and the curse collided with the dragon's fire and began to extinguish it little by little until it froze completely and shattered. The fireball then appeared, and Yuji was shocked by its size, but the slime informed him that there was something they did not know about. Yuji returned to the blacksmith with the dragon's jewel to make shields with it and told the blacksmith that these were the largest jewels he had obtained from the lesser dragons, but when the blacksmith tried to deny it, he remembered that Yuji had told him to keep his powers a secret. He went to the guild and asked the worker about the city of Ordarian, and she replied that it was a city that adventurers did not like to go to, as it was a strange city that did not like to get involved with other cities. The slime took out the strange device they had found in the volcano, and she was amazed by it. This device was one of the guild's weather-changing machines. Each guild had one, and the name of the guild it belonged to was engraved on it, but it was not known which city it belonged to. One of the time, Yuji remembered what the two people had said about the people of Ordarion. He returned to the blacksmith and found that he had finished making the armor and described it as legendary. Yuji went to try it on, and the blacksmith wanted to know his name, but Yuji wanted to keep it a secret as a precaution. In one of the forests, there was a man praying to God to give him strength, and it turned out that he was from the Moon sect and drew his energy to destroy the world. Yuji headed to the next city, and as soon as he entered it, he found that he was the center of attention. When he went to the order list, he did not take any of them and sent Slime to track these people. They knew it was Yuji and wanted to get rid of him, but one of them thought that they should not ruin all the planning of these years in vain, as it was enough that they had bought the rain machine and lost it in vain because someone had killed the dragon and they had to inform Walter before taking any action. When Yuji listened to them, he found Pastor Steele coming up behind him and taking him to the church. He told him that he was there for him, that he had been waiting for him, and that the guild there belonged entirely to the Blue Moon sect. The priest began to tell Yuji his story about Walter. It was clear that they knew each other from before. In the past, there was something known as the Blue Moon Church, and the priest was a wild person, so he did this as a kind of act to honor his dead friends. Soon, the outcasts and oppressed joined them, and Walter was one of them. His faith was strong, and he devoted himself to worshiping the gods. He quickly became the priest's right-hand man, or so he thought, but in reality, his ambitions were high, and he found the presence of Pastor Steele undesirable. One day, he received a divine message ordering him to dissolve the Blue Moon Church, but he did not do so for fear of losing his companions. A few days later, the church was attacked and burned down, and the priest survived thanks to his companions who died. The divine message was a warning to him about this incident. He then realized that the purpose of the attack was to try to take over the Moon Church led by Walter, and he changed the course of those with him, and thus began the Blue Salvation Group. It was clear that Walter had tightened his grip on the area and was making dangerous plans. The priest returned to this place to warn Yuji about this. Yuji did not expect the priest to be one of them, and the priest replied that the divine message he had received might be the reason for ending this. Not long ago, the priest received a divine message saying that chaos would escalate, and that the branded glow would lead the masses astray, but the messenger would guide them and blessings would be restored. He explained to him that the branded one was Walter, who would lead the world into chaos, and that the messenger of the gods would stand in his way. He expected Yuji to fight him, but Yuji denied that he was the messenger. He pointed out that the legend said that the messenger carried Keith's dagger with him. After Yuji's departure, the assistant Johan went to the priest to tell him why he did not read the entire divine message to him, for if he had known the rest of the message, he would not have complied with it. One of the assistants went to Walter to tell him that the priest had met someone secretly in the church and knew that it was the tamer, and asked him to finish the preparations. As for Walter, he went to God to ask for help, told him about the divine message, and added that the wise man would rise in the courtyard of the guide, so he knew that the guide's death was near. After Yuji went home, he began to think about what had happened and the legendary dagger, and he remembered the worker's words about the legendary beast that transports things using slime, and he decided to ask him about it tomorrow. When he went to the church the next day, he found that he had left because he had an emergency. Yuji went to the slime and asked them if they had seen the priest and his assistant leave the city. None of the slime had seen them, but one of them replied that he had seen him going deep into the forest and told him to follow him. In the forest, he found the priest and the curse created by humans, and he dispelled this wall. As for Yuji, he asked the slimes not to hesitate to ask the other slimes for help, and they led him to the priest's location. When the priest entered this dark place, he encountered 2 members of the sect, so the wizard strengthened his protection and power, and at the same time, Yuji arrived at the place. The priest arrived at Steel, determined to carry out the divine message so that what had happened before with his friends would not happen again. Yuji entered and found the guards lying on the ground, but one of them was holding the slime. The priest fought Walter's assistants and knocked them all to the ground, but he was restrained and stunned by them. He was surprised to find that it was his assistant who had cast a spell on him, and when he woke up, he realized that they had manipulated him from the beginning to lead the messenger to them. It started with a dagger that made the sect follow the person who continued to dispel their curses, and his assistant told them that the priest had given him the dagger to help him as well. The priest and his assistant began to hide, but the emissary continued to ruin their plans one after another. The priest had to end his life here for the emissary to appear and destroy Walter, but Walter wanted to see the truth. However, if it was his wish to die now, then so be it. He woke up, and his followers turned into monsters, cursing them all. Steel immediately realized that this was the stigmatized glow, and Walter enjoyed seeing Steel broken and defeated. Suddenly, there was an explosion next to them, and it turned out that Yuji wanted to ask him something. But after looking at the situation, he realized that it was not the right time. As soon as Yuji entered, Johan attacked him, but he created a barrier and dispelled the curse from the priest, marveling at the fact that the assistant was also a member of the sect. When Walter found out that Yuji was the messenger, he ordered his assistants to attack him immediately, but Yuji countered them by transferring the fire spell to his slime and attacking them. He left the room, went to a chair, and sat down on it. This chair would give him tremendous power, and the power began to flow into him, but Yuji and the priest quickly entered the room. The power flowed into Walter completely, so much so that he began to transform into a dragon-like form. When Yuji attacked him with a fireball, he found that his size had increased along with his powers, and he tried to breathe a ball of fire at them, but Proud Wolf jumped up, grabbed Yuji and the priest, and pulled them away at the last moment. Wings and a tail appeared, and power flowed through his body, making Walter much stronger. When Yuji attacked him, he found that he had also become faster, so he ordered the slimes to go and scatter and transferred the fireball spell to them, and they began throwing fireballs at Walter from all directions as he tried to dodge them by flying away. These attacks had no effect on him as they were too weak. In the end, he relied on his armor, throwing it at the slimes and Proud Wolf, which increased their strength and speed, surprising Walter, who was unable to keep up with them. The slimes caught up with Walter, and Yuji cast the fireball spell on him, knocking Walter to the ground with its intensity. He lost part of his hand and body after this attack, so he used one of his assistants to regenerate that part, and no one could believe what they were seeing. Walter tried to attack again, but his hand was injured again. He drew strength from his assistants and replaced the missing part, increasing his strength as well, and 2 new arms grew for him. This time, he was attacked by all the slimes at the same time, but every time he lost a part, it was quickly regenerated. Yuji realized that the dragon pool was indeed powerful, but if this was a curse, it could only mean one thing. He mounted Proud Wolf and continued to attack Walter from behind, casting a spell to dispel the curse and destroying his foot. This made Walter furious, and he came to attack Yuji, but he quickly cast a barrier spell, and when the barrier was about to dissipate from the severity of Walter's blows, the slime told him they were ready, so he cast a magical spell that bound him. The rest of the slimes also cast 10 magic nets, which Proud Wolf caught and tied tightly around him, then cast a spell of destructive fire on him. After casting this spell on Walter, he burned and lost parts of his body. Before he died, he sacrificed his life and the lives of his followers in order to fulfill his mission and then died. However, there was something wrong with all of this. The priest told Yuji that what he meant was to absorb magical powers from everywhere. So he absorbed the powers of Walter and his followers immediately, as well as Johan, and the powers began to gather from everywhere and sparkle, and they all came together in one form, and a person turned to them and said that he was the wise man. Yuji did not understand this and thought it was Walter, but the priest told him that there was a continuation to the message he had given him, which was that with the death of the guide, the ruler would rise. So he thought that the guide was the wise man, and thus Yuji was the wise man. But in the end, it turned out that the guide was Walter. Yuji wanted to know who the wise man was, so the priest told him what was in the legends. In ancient times, an envoy came to fight the dragon, but he quickly died from the dragon's power, and it seems that Walter and his followers sacrificed themselves to revive him again. Yuji told him that summoning spirits meant summoning gods, which meant that this man was a god, but the priest shouted that this was not their god. The wise man looked at him and, without hesitation, used the fire of destruction, which burned everything around him. Yuji and the priest survived thanks to the protection Yuji had provided. Yuji enhanced the abilities of the slime and the Proud Wolf to help them in the fight, and they all went to destroy him. As soon as they approached, they fired, but the sage blocked it with a barrier and fired more fire of destruction at them. The slime and the wolf immediately moved away, and Yuji ordered them to spread out. They fired a barrage of fireballs at him, and he blocked them all. Yuji decided to gather all the slime at the top and fire a frost wave at him, but the sage used his anti-magic shield and easily broke it. The slimes gathered again and fired fireballs at him once more, but he dodged them and stood facing Yuji. Both Yuji and the sage fired fireballs 10 times, but the two continued firing until the sage's fire disappeared and Yuji's fire hit him. After all this, the sage appeared, standing firm in his place, unharmed, and raised his hand to the sky, saying that he would now grant the world salvation. He released a spell from his hand that spread throughout the weather everywhere, and immediately dark clouds filled with lightning and thunder appeared in the sky. Yuji immediately realized that it was the blessing of the dragons. All the monsters everywhere turned into his minions, and the priest could not believe what he was seeing, for this was not salvation at all. Yuji knew from the slime he had left everywhere that the monsters were agitated by the rain, for the sage had used weather machines to spread the curse of the blue moon of salvation everywhere. The sage turned to Yuji to tell him that in the past, he had been killed by a dragon and had not completed his mission, so he would bring salvation to this world. In the end, another dragon would come and cause destruction, but all Yuji could think about was the difference between him and the dragon, as both would destroy the world. "Accept your salvation, young sage." These were the sage's words to Yuji before he cast the spell of doom, which Yuji resisted and decided to fight back. The two continued to cast the spell of destruction on each other, and the priest could not believe the amount of energy he was seeing. Yuji was informed that monsters were invading the cities, and he was overcome with fear. It was difficult for Yuji to fight the wise man and the young man at the same time, as his mana had become negative and his powers were completely depleted, but something he did not expect happened. The people of Vista prepared themselves and gathered in the square to repel the attacking monsters. Yuji had defended them before, and they would not let that go to waste. As for the people of Kelia, their warriors were also prepared, as were the cities that Yuji had helped. Yuji did not expect any of this, as he was used to working alone, but after seeing their enthusiasm, he realized that there was nothing wrong with teamwork. Yuji gave the warriors several spells, including offensive and defensive enhancements to help them all fight, and soon everyone felt the energy flowing through them and immediately began fighting the monsters. Thus, the people of the cities were now ready to defend themselves, and all that remained for Yuji was to face the sage. At the same time, Priest Steel informed him that the gods were angry and had sent him another message. When the sun and moon came together, divine judgment would be handed down. Yuji left the priest's protection to Proud Wolf and turned his attention to his fight with the sage. He remembered the Dryad potion that increased mana, as it had 10 minutes ago when he used magic. He rose to face the sage and wondered why Yuji did not defend this world and protect it, and why he did not stand in the way of its salvation. But Yuji had no answer, and the sage remembered that he had no answer before either, so he decided that they would fight without reason until they put an end to all this. The sage cast a spell of destructive fire 3 times on Yuji, and the two continued to fight, but the sage laughed and told Yuji that he would continue to use magic until his human body reached its limits. Suddenly, the holy shock spell that Yuji had previously used on the blue dragon appeared, and it occurred to him that this was divine judgment. He immediately cast it on the sage, who fell to the ground. To his surprise, the spell's duration was still active, meaning that Yuji could use it repeatedly. He did not hesitate and continued to cast the spell on the sage over and over again because it was effective. The priest immediately realized that it was God's judgment being handed down again and again. After many shocks, the sage was still able to stand, so Yuji realized that these blows were not enough. He took out his dagger, summoned the slime, and struck the dagger with a holy lightning bolt, which emitted a powerful beam with the sun and moon behind it. The sage prepared to unleash his most powerful spell on Yuji as well, but Yuji quickly used the barrier spell 6 times and the complete isolation matrix, which became stronger thanks to the slime shields, isolating his battle area with the sage. How could Yuji isolate the sage and his magic as well? This made him furious, stabbing him with his dagger, and the beam spread through his body, completely destroying the sage. Amidst the astonishment of the priest and Proud Wolf, the complete isolation matrix was destroyed, the sage was eliminated, the clouds completely dissipated, and Yuji fell to the ground. The slimes and Proud Wolf gathered around him, and if he hadn't put up a barrier around himself, it would have been the end for him. The priest Theo went to pray to the goddess, thanking her that the world was now a safe place. After reading the first letter again and realizing its meaning, he wished to meet her again. The slimes felt sad that they had to leave Ordarion immediately with Yuji and would not even stay to eat, but Yuji knew that the guild there was still under the control of the Blue Moon and did not want them to suspect him. Yuji remembered to check on the other cities, and when he contacted the slimes, Dryad told him that the city here had held a celebration, as had the other cities, and they talked about how powerful they felt when fighting and the importance of working together. 3 members of the Blue Moon Guild met to discuss the loss of contact with Walter, and one of them thought that today's explosion had something to do with it. So he told him that rumor had it that the summoning ritual had failed and Walter and his followers had disappeared. When they suggested informing headquarters, the third replied that this continent did not have much left anyway, as the purification device was almost complete, and once activated, the entire continent would be wiped out, so there was no need to inform headquarters of such trivial matters. The two agreed that he was right, as they did not have much time left to live. In the Salvation Group, they had a higher goal to serve, which was to defeat the Black Dragon of Destruction. They would conquer with their own hands the dragon that the envoy had been unable to defeat. Yuji listened to this conversation the whole time while eating with Slime and Proud Wolf, and he was tired of this sect causing trouble, but Slime interrupted him to report that many monsters were surrounding them from all sides and seemed very strong. The next morning, Yuji went to the Union and informed them that he wanted to obtain an arrest warrant for the tiger. He continued by saying that he had encountered it on his way and killed it. The worker was astonished when she saw the tiger behind him. She wanted to divide the reward among the team members, but Yuji had always worked alone. She looked at him for a long time, and tears began to fall from her eyes. She felt sorry for him because she had not paid attention to what he had said and thought that the rest of his team had perished. Yuji did not accept the truth and convinced himself that he had never had any companions from the beginning. She continued to comfort him about his team, but a woman intervened and asked what was happening. He replied that this young man had killed the cannibal tigers. When she approached the tiger, she found no traces of a blade, and it seemed that he had used fire magic to kill them. It was not several people who had fought them, but only one person. She asked him if he was an expert in magic, but as usual, he replied that he was just an ordinary tamer. The woman continued, saying that she had heard rumors about a tamer who could use magic. The worker was stunned in the middle of a crowd of people and wondered if he was the person who saved several villages from monster attacks and defeated the legendary dragon. Was this young man named Yuji, the tamer? Yuji realized that he was in big trouble now.